This episode of Tekzilla is sponsored by Domain.com. Last week, Roger Chang and I expressed our frustration with 3D drivers under Ubuntu Linux, which led to my Steambox Linux FAIL video and a lot of angry posts on the YouTubes. We got Steam running happily, by the way, with my GTX 670. We'll tell you how in a moment. I'll give you a hint, distro change. But first, let me say one thing. Let me make it really clear. We are excited about Steam on Linux. It is awesome that Linux Steam users are probably going to surpass the number of OS X users running Steam. Go open source.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
RC Maniac commented to us, as for the driver problem, stick with Nvidia if you play demanding games, or Intel. There's no problem whatsoever. Sadly, I can't recommend AMD because although they have a more open attitude than Nvidia, their drivers suck.
I got to say, bummer on AMD and driver support. They've obviously got a lot going on in their house right now. I am running Nvidia GPUs right now, and I can honestly say, given how happy I've been with Ubuntu as a desktop operating system, I was shocked at how difficult it was to get my 3D card running under 12.10. Right? And then actually, you know what? 12.4 would work either. The fix for me was giving up on Ubuntu and installing Mint Linux, or I should say Linux Mint. Once Linux Mint was installed, I was able to manually install NVIDIA's drivers for the GTX 670 in our Puget Systems box and get my 3D gaming on in Linux. Yeah. And for folks just joining in, or for folks who got really angry that I suggested that there might be issues with non-dedicated lifestyle Linux users dealing with Steam on Linux, I tried 32 and 64-bit versions of Ubuntu with 12.10 and 12.4, both manually and using the additional drivers installers, and I did clean reinstalls between each fail so something I did stupid would not impact the next attempt. No bueno. I get that it worked for other folks. I get that you can buy a pre-configured system with Linux drivers in it, but I'm not alone in having 3D drivers not work, especially under 12.10. I thought 12.4 would fix it. I was wrong. Seriously, Steam would load just fine, but 3D games without 3D acceleration from the GPU, not so much fun. I really want to thank everybody that emailed with ideas. It's odd how many ways there are to manually install 3D drivers when you're used to Windows and OS X, which leads me back to YouTube, where a bunch of Linux fans were really miffed.
A person named Brian Perry commented on YouTube, fact check! This info is not right. Steam is working with Nvidia and AMD to improve their drivers on Linux. Intel is also working on their Linux drivers for their graphics chips.
Yeah, fact check. Working on means sometime in the future. Today, as in this morning, Steam on Linux does not handle drivers the way Steam does in Windows. In fact, Steam on Linux doesn't handle drivers at all. Steam on Windows equals like a global driver update. You download, you run your game, it makes sure everything is all happy and good to go. Steam on Linux, you need to have your 3D acceleration sorted because Steam won't fix it for you. That's fine, but let me be clear. At this time, not in the future, not after Linus flips off Nvidia during an interview and magically the drivers get updated from Nvidia again, and that's where the last big boost in Linux driver performance on Nvidia came from. Linus Torvalds actually, basically when asked about driver support, flipped off flipped off Nvidia, didn't flip off Linux.
Good.
Look, it's not good, but you know, for people who live inside of Linux, it is not as simple for people coming from outside of Linux.
Good point.
Mark McKinnon posts.
Mark McKinnon, yes. Another YouTube commenter, these guys are so stupid. Guys, look, you can download repositories from launchpad.net for video card drivers. Also, there is a lot of games on Steam right now for Linux. Let me check Steam's website. Over 100 games. Also, the 1210 driver is not really good, but 1204 and 1304 works great.
Okay, in my personal experience, using the instructions available that I found or using the additional drivers tool, 12.4 would not recognize and install our GPU. I gotta say thanks up for the personal package archives update on launchpad.net, but wouldn't it be cool if the tools built into Ubuntu work? And by the way, searching for NVIDIA gives us like NVIDIA settings package, or do I want the NVIDIA common in Launchpad, or you know what I mean? Like, if I am not super cool guy Linux user, this is a little confusing. And again, look, obviously Mark is a hardcore Linux user. I appreciate his frustration with 1210. He's not the only person to write about avoiding 1210 for 3D gaming. Several people did. You know, but literally 12.4 additional drivers, manual installs would not work. And I got to say, while it's awesome that there's over 100 games for Steam on Linux, Windows users have almost 2,000 games to pick from. As of, I want to say, Friday, 168 games on Linux. Awesome start to go from 0 to 168 games, and a couple of them the most popular games on Linux. But it is a ways to go before we get to parity with Windows.
Okay, not everyone was so angry though. My woofie, he posted, or she, I'm not sure, posted, Linux is a great server and multi-purpose OS, but totally sucks and fails on the desktop. Installing packages drives the non-tech savvy user crazy. Updating to a new version sometimes it's like going from Windows 7 to Windows 8, a completely different GUI. You hardly get any help from friends simply because nobody runs it. Proliferation of applications has come to an end because there's no market. Additional hardware is a game of chance. Drivers, well, maybe, but lacks 90% of the features or they're integrated. Arrgh.
I gotta say, I actually like Ubuntu as a desktop. It was just when I was trying to get 3D gaming running that it turned into an epic fail for me with Steam. One last thing before we go, Zillen emailed to point out that, quote, Half-Life is not Valve's only game on the Linux platform. They also have Counter-Strike Source, Counter-Strike the original one, and Team Fortress 2, which is the second most played game on Steam, and a Valve game which runs on Linux. My bad. Apparently we forgot to mention that in the second take, the one that went in. But I want to point out, Valve has some more games to get ported. You might notice the lack of Portal, Portal 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Half-Life 2. I could go on for a while. Yes, Valve has a bunch of games on there. Team Fortress 2, awesome. But 168 games, we got a ways to go yet. I want to say thanks again to everybody. And if you've got tips or tricks for Linux newbies, especially for Mint Linux, do us a favor, post them in the comments on YouTube or email tekzilla@revision3.com with them. I want to elevate the level of Linux on the show, and I need your help to do it. And one last time, I love Ubuntu as a desktop. The 3D driver thing, a bag of sock. Hey, got to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors.
Need a new domain name? Consider registering a new .com. We all know that the .com domain name is the original and the best. It's globally understood and it gives your website immediate credibility no matter what name you choose. And the best place to find a new .com domain is at domain.com. Here at Tekzilla, we like domain.com because they're affordable, reliable, and easy to use. Plus, domain.com's active social media presence on Twitter at domain.com and great customer support make it a fun place to do business. Not enough for you? What about an awesome coupon code worth a big 20% off discount off of domain.com's already low prices? All you need to do is use the coupon code Tekzilla when you check out at domain.com. That's 20% off, people. Big time savings. And don't forget to give the Tekzilla coupon code some love. And when you think domain names, think domain.com. And that's a .com.